His name came up on your screen, and your whole body remembered him before your mind had a chance to decide anything. This letter is for that moment, for the woman sitting very still in a quiet room, holding a phone, feeling something rise in her chest that she thought had finally gone. You had done the work. Not perfectly, but honestly. There were weeks where getting through the day was the entire achievement. You stopped checking. You stopped rehearsing conversations with him in your head. And somewhere recently, without noticing the exact day, you woke up and he was not the first thought. That was the moment something in you started to heal. And now he is back. Right now, not a year ago, when you were begging God to send him back. And not in the month when you would have taken him without a single question. Now when your hands are finally open. So the thought arrives, warm and immediate, and it feels almost holy. Maybe this is God. Maybe the letting go was the test, and this is the reward. Be gentle with yourself about that thought. It is not foolish. It is what a hopeful heart does with a coincidence. But it deserves examining before it costs you the ground you just took. Start with what is happening in your body, because it got there before your judgment did. Familiarity produces a feeling almost identical to safety. He is a known quantity. Your nervous system recognizes him the way it recognizes a house you grew up in, and recognition is so quick and so physical that it arrives dressed as certainty. That is why this feels like a sign. Nothing that instant could possibly be a decision, so it must be guidance. It is not guidance. It is memory, moving fast. Because there are reasons a man comes back, and most of them have nothing to do with becoming a different man. The first is the simplest. He felt the change in temperature. Not your absence exactly, your availability closing. For as long as he could reach you, there was nothing to notice. The moment the reaching stopped, something registered, and what registered was not love. It was the loss of a certainty he had grown used to. The second is that the chase was what he was responding to all along. Some men are wired toward whatever is moving away from them. While you pursued, he could rest. Now that you have gone still, the old machinery starts up again. Understand what this means. If your distance is what generated his interest, then his interest will fade again the moment you close it. And you already know this because it has happened before. The third has nothing to do with you at all. Whatever he left for did not work out. That is a hard sentence to read, but it is often the whole story. He is not returning to something. He is returning from something. The fourth is that he is lonely, and you were the person who made loneliness bearable. He misses being known without effort. He misses the person who remembered how he takes his coffee and what he was worried about last month. That is a real feeling, and it is not the same thing as missing you. He misses the role you played. And the fifth is the quietest one. Sometimes a man comes back only to confirm that he could, not to stay. To check that the door still opens. He wants to know the exit he took is still there in reverse. Because a man who knows he can always return never has to fully lose anything. Take a moment here. This is not being said to make you bitter, and it is not a verdict on him. It is being said because you have spent months learning to hear your own voice again. And a returning man is very loud. He arrives with memory on his side. He knows the sound of your laugh and how to make it happen. Nobody new has that. It will feel like relief, and relief is not the same as rightness, and you are not required to decide anything tonight. Now, the turn. His return is not the answer to your prayer. His return is where you get to find out what your prayer actually did to you. Because something happened while he was gone. You became a woman who could survive without him, and that is not a small thing. And it took everything you had. The question in front of you is not whether he has changed. It is whether you will hand back what you built the moment the familiar thing walks in. There were people who learned this the long way. God brought Israel out of Egypt. Out of slavery, out of forced labor, through water that opened in front of them. And within a short time in the wilderness, they were weeping and saying they wanted to go back. They remembered the fish they ate in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks and onions and garlic. They listed the food. They talked about Egypt like a place they had lost. Notice what the memory did to the facts. Not one word about the bricks. Not a word about the cruelty they had cried out under for years. So loudly that Scripture says God heard it. The homesickness edited the story down to the parts that tasted good, and it did not stop there. They said it would have been better to have died in Egypt. They accused the God who had rescued them of bringing them out into the wilderness to kill them. That is what unmet longing does to a memory over time. It does not just soften the past. It starts rewriting the rescue itself as the cruelty. That is exactly what your heart is doing tonight. And it is not a character flaw. It is what memory does with pain when the pain is finally over. You are not remembering him. You are remembering the good parts of him, arranged in an order that never actually happened. And there is that other moment, on a different road, when a family was being led out of a city about to be destroyed, and they were told plainly not to look back. Lot's wife looked back. That is all the text says she did. She turned around toward the place she was being rescued from, and she never made it to the new place. There is a mercy hidden in how quickly that story is told. Looking back does not always require a decision. Sometimes it is one turn of the head, made out of longing, in a moment when the future looked less certain than the past. So this is not about closing your heart. Hear that clearly. People do change. It happens, and God is in the business of it, and it would be dishonest to write you a letter suggesting otherwise. But change announces itself in a particular way, and it is not hard to recognize once you know the shape of it. A changed man names the specific thing he did without being prompted. He does not say he is sorry things ended badly. He says the actual sentence, out loud, about the actual harm. He does not need you to explain your own wound back to him. He shows up with the work already started, not with a promise to start it if you will come back. He accepts that there are consequences, and he does not treat your caution as an insult. And he is patient, because a man who has genuinely changed knows what he cost you and does not expect a discount. There is also a simple thing you can do. Instead of deciding tonight, and it costs you nothing, let time carry the weight. Not a rule about time, not a punishment, just the ordinary passage of enough weeks for behavior to show itself. A man who has genuinely changed will still be there in 2 months, steady, without pressure, without a speech about how hard the waiting is on him. A man who came back for access will not last that long, and he will show you which one he is, without you ever having to conduct an investigation. Waiting is not a game you are playing with him. It is simply the only honest way to gather information about a person. If that is what is standing in front of you, you will not have to squint to see it. It is obvious. It is boring in how obvious it is. And if you find yourself building the case for him, gathering evidence, explaining to a friend why this time is different, then you already have your answer, because you have never had to argue anyone into believing something that was actually true. And if you do send him away, brace for the night that follows, because it will be one of the hard ones. The loneliness will be sharper for a few days than it was before he wrote, and your mind will present that pain as evidence that you chose wrong. It is not evidence. Reopening a wound to clean it always hurts more than leaving it alone did. You are a daughter of the king, and your father does not restore things by handing you back the exact life you were rescued from. When he returns something, it comes back changed, and so do you. That is how you tell the difference between a restoration and a repetition. Whatever you decide about him, decide it as the woman you are now, not as the woman who was drowning last spring. She is not the one who has to answer this. She has done enough. Write down the one sentence you want to remember the next time his name appears on your screen and put it in the comments. Some woman is going to read yours at 2 in the morning and use it to get through her own night.